Welcome to the first podcast for twirlers by twirlers. In an effort to promote and popularize baton twirling around the world, we bring you behind the curtain with us to see how baton twirling has helped change lives. Thank you for supporting us in our mission by listening to the Baton Twirling Podcast. You are listening to part 2 of our interview with Adaline Bebo. As you know, Adaline will be competing for the title of Miss Texas this summer. If you would like to contribute to her journey, even if it's just to say best of luck, check out the latest blog post at batontwirlingproject.com or search for Post 10 Part 2 on the blog. You can find Adaline on social media under @AddieTwirls. That's A as in awesome, D as in dancer, and I like incredible. Addie Twirls. Hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I actually got a message from a little twirler from France recently on Instagram. She just messaged me. She's like, I saw that you were twirling at a basketball game, and I want to know how I can do that. They don't do that here. We don't do that in France. And I know they don't even do it in Canada. I was talking to girls last week, and they don't perform at sporting events. That's just not something that they do. And so I told her how to get in contact with whoever's in charge of like marketing or planning for the game. I told her I said send them a message that basically outlines what it is that you do, what your accomplishments are, what kind of like twirling that you do. Send them videos of me twirling at a halftime. I get to do my videos. Send them videos of you twirling at like a competition, just so they know what they're getting. And basically explain that you are here to share your sport and entertain. And it's just a really cool halftime opportunity. And so she messaged me back and she's like, oh my gosh, they booked me for it. And she just sent me her video of her performing. And the crowd erupted. Because, of course, you've never seen anything like this at a halftime, where I feel like that's like, oh, baton twirling, oh, how cool. But then they're just impressed from there. But they were, like, amazed. And so I loved that. And I think that's also, like, a really big way that I've seen people recently. I've been helping people up in Canada, talking to them about how to get involved with twirling at different various events, whether, it's unconventional, like twirling at a baseball game in between innings or, like, wherever. Whatever it is, if you can get an opportunity to perform and share it with an audience that would otherwise never see twirling, that opens so many doors, not only for you, but for other people into the sport itself.
That's really great. So what advice would you give to young twirlers, and what type of things would you tell them?
This was actually something that I did a seminar on while I was in Canada, and I would definitely just say to, first of all, stay consistent in order to see results, but also don't get too down on yourself. I think for a long time, I heavily associated my self-worth and things like that with my performance, whether I had a good performance or a bad performance. And it really did feel like life or death sometimes. Like, oh my gosh, I am the worst person in the world because I had a bad performance. And I was a dropper growing up. I had a lot of problems dropping and with consistency and things like that. And I think it really goes to show that putting in time in the gym, those 10,000 hours of work and dedication toward what it is that you're trying to achieve, that has so much worth, especially in my mind, because that's such a big part of my journey. I failed more times than I could ever count. I mean, there were so many days where I would get to the gym, especially when I was homeschooled for a year and a half. I would get to the gym and I would be there for 9 hours and I would spend 6 hours of it crying, whether it was like on the floor crying or like twirling and crying, just because I was so discouraged. And none of it was because I was unhappy with twirling. It was because I hated twirling, and otherwise I would have just like up and left. My mom would have been like, let's just leave. My mom was always like along for the ride. She never forced me to do anything. She's like, oh, you want to quit? Oh, we're quitting. Bye. We're out of here. See ya. So like, it was never like, oh, you have to practice. No, my mom would be like, why are you crying? Like, if you're so sad, let's go home. Let's get ice cream and go home. But it was because I was just so discouraged and so frustrated because I would drop so many times. And like, I would get through practice and I would feel like I had never caught anything. Yeah. There were so many hard days. There were so many hard competitions where I'd come away and feeling like I had trained my entire life for this competition, only to have made some very critical errors in the final round. Like, I always go back to my final round strut at the 2015 World Championships in Italy. Like, after my first round, it was like the best strut I've ever done. And then in the final, I managed to drop on my marches and slip and almost fall twice. So, like, talk about a bad strut at the finals of the World Championships. Like, it really could not have happened any first time. And I remember coming away like, how did you let this happen? Like, what went wrong? But I think that was not obviously the first initial thought that came to my head when that happened. There were much more frustrated feelings at first, rather than like, how could there was a lot less questions and a lot more frustration. I'd say a lot more exclamations than question marks at that point. But I really came away from that experience pulling everything I could from it in order to improve. And I think that that's a big message that I have to the next generations of twirlers, to rather than like count your failures, count the lessons that you learn from these failures. I came away learning that I needed to train differently. It wasn't that I wasn't prepared. It was that I had not prepared myself in the way that was going to best suit my performance. And luckily, through my major and everything, as learning about neuroscience and learning about psychology, I've learned a lot that has really put it in perspective and made it a lot more like mathematical for me, because I think that I get so emotional about these things that in order to really take a step back, see the big picture, and take away these lessons, I have to look at it mathematically or scientifically in a way. Otherwise, I do get very emotional about these things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible twirler. I get really down on myself. But one big thing is that your brain is like a muscle, and in order to make your brain stronger, you have to lift weights that are past what you can handle, if that makes sense. You have to face a difficulty in order for your mindset, for your brain to grow. So it's like lifting little 5-pound weights isn't going to get your muscles any bigger. You're not going to get swole lifting 5-pound weights, but your brain has to face challenges in order to get stronger. And I think that was something that I denied for a long time. I was like, I don't know why I have to face all these difficulties. I am strong enough to do this, but in reality, each and every single one of those major failures that I faced led to this ultimate, I guess, accomplishment. So I really want all of these twirlers to know that, like, I post all these wonderful moments and things on my Instagram, but that is so far from the big picture. From the many, many failures that I faced. And I don't want them to get discouraged and say, well, like, oh, she never fails. She's perfect all the time. I really want them to know that there is so much more that goes into it, and that failing is okay. And a lot of times I look back at those failures with a lot of fond memories. And only in the last 2-3 years did I really take a moment every step of the way to enjoy it. I am very type A. I am very, very serious a lot of times. And it's taken a lot to find the joy in baton twirling that I really have. Like, I have a lot of joy, but it's a lot of, like, I find joy in, like, being perfect. I find joy in, like, getting good scores. Like, I find joy in just, like, challenging myself every single day and doing tricks that I know I can't do. But now I found joy in, like, sitting in the stands, eating concession food with my mom. I found joy in, like, knowing that, like, walking off the floor and looking at my mom, I'm like, wow, that was really bad, but being able to laugh about it. Because I was never able to do that before. I would come off and I would just be so worried. I would be so upset about these terrible, terrible performances, and it would eat away at me. It took a lot of practice to not beat myself up initially, but it took a lot of practice to really enjoy it. Be like, you know what? I performed for those people. It was a bad performance, but darn it, I performed, and I put myself out there, and I'm going to learn from it. Now, in my practices, what can I do differently? I think that was probably the biggest. I guess another thing that I would really emphasize with the younger generation is to not feel like they need to be like any other twirler. Growing up, I had a lot of different experiences to pull from gymnastics, from cheerleading. I had all these different styles that I loved. I loved watching ballroom dancing. I idolized Latin ballroom. I loved it, and I incorporated a lot of the moves that I would see in there, and like from the gymnastics. And I felt like growing up, a lot of the girls in my junior category really closely aligned to the styles of the girls in the senior women's category. So like there was someone who aligned with Carissa, someone aligned with Jenny, someone aligned with Jennifer Marquez, and I felt like I didn't line up with any of them. I like didn't fit in any of their styles to really look up to them. I looked up to all of them, but none of them exclusively. And for a long time, I struggled to find my personal style. I was like, well, where do I fit in? Is my style going to be accepted? I was worried that they wouldn't appreciate the creativity that I was putting into things, and they would maybe rather prefer to see something that they had seen before. I'm always asked this question. Is it better to make something look easy that's hard, or is it better to make something easy look harder? Like, which is more appreciated by the judges, making something that's hard look easy? Like, oh, that's easy for her. So it's kind of like a big challenge that I faced. I was like, I don't know how my style is going to fit in because I'm pushing the limits. So I really want the next generation of twirlers to have no fears. I want them to push the bounds of their creativity and also find time outside of their competition routines to really explore twirling.
Mm-hmm.
That was where I found the most love in the sport. Was I would set aside 30 minutes after practice, and my mom would just play, like, she would press, like, shuffle, and whatever song that would play, I would create a routine to it. And, like, sometimes the most wild dance moves and twirling moves would come out of it. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, Mom, you have to film this. You have to film this and send this to my coaches right now. They have to see this. Because, like, the wildest stuff would come out of it. And some of it would be like, wow, that's so weird. Or some of it would really come out and be so cool and end up being iconic.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really challenge them to find time outside of their normal competition practice, find time out of, like, training to explore creativity and really explore what there is in twirling. Because twirling is truly, as a subjectively scored sport, it will forever be limitless in the number of options and opportunities that you have to make it your own. So I really hope that generations of twirlers will look at this time that I'm in right now with Carissa and everything and see that there are all of these advantages to being able to be limitless in twirling.
So speaking of unique tricks, how long did it take you to learn how to do that Hollywood roll? Because that thing is fantastic.
Oh my god. Oh, there is definitely, like, I know the exact timeline of a lot of my tricks because a lot of times my coach Jackie Stewart, I knew that if I went to her with any trick and it wasn't like 100% or like maybe even like 80%, when I showed it to her, it was a no-go. It was like, no. She, like, really, like, couldn't look past the fact that it was, like, likely impossible.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, maybe I could get this with a year of practice. So I always prepared, and I don't know if that's, like, just my perception, because I was always so afraid that she wouldn't like something. So I would prepare tricks for years in advance before I'd be like, okay, Jackie, I have this trick I've been working on. I'm ready to show it to you. Like, my triple leaf, I worked on that for an entire year to get the strength up before I finally showed it to her. And the first time I ever showed it to her, I was on a tennis court. I went to catch it under my leg, and my leg got hooked on the tennis net, and I caught it because I was not dropping. So I was eager to show her. And I, like, hung from the tennis net, and I was like, Jackie, ta-da, that's it. She's like, that's the one. I remember she said, winner, winner, chicken dinner. And I said, yes, thank God for that one. With the Holly roll, I was actually doing my little 30-minute at the end of practice experimentation moment. I'm sure a lot of other twirlers do this Holly roll where they balance it up around their neck and they do a spin underneath it and they bring it back down.
Oh.
So I was in the process of trying to do that when I got it to, like, go up and over on my neck and really, like, sustain. And then I was recently trying to practice something else. I was trying to do, like, another cool move with it when I got it, like, stuck on my chin, and then I, like, decided to just pop it out. So all of this has, like, happened through experimentation and accidents. All of my favorite tricks happened on accident.
Yep. Yeah.
Every single one of them. And then, thank the Lord, I've been able to recreate them. Because I remember I don't know how many amazing tricks I've been able to do that Jackie was like, oh, do that again. And I was like, I have no idea what I just did. I was just messing
I totally
around.
screwed up. What did I do?
Right, the baton went a certain way, and Jackie's like, that's the one, it's going into routine. I'm like, Jackie, I have no idea what I just did with the baton. Like, we have no video evidence of this. Yeah. It's like it never happened, imagine. But the Holly roll itself, I would say just practicing it probably took me at least a year of just handling it and working with it just to be comfortable enough to feel like I was 100% with it. And even then, like, I have some slip-ups. Like, Miss Texas, my first year, like, flew away. Just because you get excited and you, like, let it go.
Yeah.
But I would say one of the biggest things that ever helped me was I would tuck my chin and I would just let it swing, and I would really get used to the weight of the baton.
Okay.
I think a lot of times I would always tend to, like, just, like, try to force it around. But really letting the weight of the baton dictate where you're going and getting your body underneath it and getting the right body angle so it doesn't, like, hit your body. But it's the whole process, and I feel like with the Holly roll in particular, it just takes a lot of hands-on experience. With each person, it's fairly individual, especially, like, with other things like elbow pops and stuff like that. It takes a lot of just time with baton.
Yeah.
I wish there was a secret trick. I wish there was. Oh, it would have made my life a lot easier.
Yeah. That was the thing. I was like, how did I do this trick by accident? And then I try to recreate it, and it's, like, impossible at that point. So I'm like, did somebody get that on tape?
Well,
anyone?
Right. Well, a lot of stuff I would go and I would try to recreate people's moves, and I would end up finding my own way of doing it that would, like, really separate me and be like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, really? It's my cheating way of doing other people's tricks. And so that's like my monster roll. I, like, bring it twice under my left arm. and I was trying to do the one where it goes around and across your back and back underneath, and I couldn't get it. And so I accidentally did that a few times, and I was like, that's it. That's what we're doing. We're done. And people loved it. People were like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, teach me how to do that. Like, I couldn't teach that if I tried. It's because I don't know what I'm doing. It's just a magic trick at this point, unfortunately. But a lot of times it's just me getting exasperated trying to learn other people's tricks, where I'm just like, oh, you know what, this is how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm not cheating it, but make sure that I'm doing it in a way that's different enough that it works for me.
That's great. You're a breath of fresh air when it comes to baton twirling, because you do tricks that aren't the normal, like, I've seen them in a solo multiple times. It's kind of like, oh, you know, that triple leap thing. It was like, oh, wow, nobody else does that.
A lot of my inspiration comes from rhythmic gymnastics. But
oh, yeah.
I think with that trick in particular, I'm by far, like, the most proud of that trick, because since I debuted it, who knows when, I think it was in 2013, was when I finally got the guts to show Jackie. So that was when it went to my routines. I have seen it like on the world stage. I did it at the 2015 World Championships in my freestyle, and last year in Norway, there were little teeny tiny Italian twirlers doing it in their routines, and like just seeing that influence, like I looked down. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of twirling when I was in Norway, but I did get up to go at one point, and I saw a little girl do my triple leap, and I like was crying instantly. I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I've learned more about my influence just in this last year. I would have never dreamed. I would definitely say there was a question that you asked me, what has been my favorite moment of baton twirling so far, and this moment was one that has really hit me. I've had several experiences like this since, but this was the first time I'd ever experienced this. I had no idea. I had no idea that I was such an inspiration. I had no idea that I had any influence whatsoever in the sport until so in 2015 I went to my first NBTA World Championships, and in 2016 after the WBTF World Championships I flew straight to the Czech Republic to teach a week-long clinic, the summer twirling camp with so many twirlers, and a lot of them had booked these private lessons with me. And I remember when I got to the clinic, I was like, hi, I'm Addie, I'm from the United States, I'm a baton twirler. I was in Italy last year. Like, I was like, these people don't know who I am. So I was like giving them the full brief of who I was, like the whole thing. And I've been twirling since I was 9. I did rhythmic gymnastics. I'm really known for being flexible. And they're kind of like, yeah, like, okay, these people don't know what I'm talking about. Clearly, I was like, these people have no clue who I am. But anyway, I had this private lesson with this little girl, and I can tell she's really nervous. She's one of the few in my class that speaks English. So she'd actually been translating for me a lot that week. So I was like, oh, it's kind of weird that she's nervous to have a private lesson with me, because she's been my little helper all week, helping me translate a lot of this. Anyway, this little girl and her mom were having a private lesson with me, and her mom reaches over and she's like, do you mind if I like touch your shoulder? And I was like, oh, I'm like, no, not at all. That's fine. I'll give you a hug. And she began to cry. And I was, oh my gosh, like I don't know if like I've offended anyone. I'm like so worried because I don't speak any word. I don't know anything in Czech. I know nothing. And she begins crying, and she's like, this is the mother. She's like, you know, you are the most beautiful twirler I've ever seen twirl in my life, and I didn't believe that I would ever be able to have the opportunity, or to give my daughter the opportunity to meet you in person, touch you in person, feel you, like speak to you. Ever in my entire life, I never dreamed that this would be a possibility, and I can't believe that you're here right now, and I can't believe that we're twirling with you. And she was just crying, and the little girl was crying, and I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe this, because obviously in the USA, twirling is not something to cry over, really, in the general public. So the fact that there was these people who I later found out had ridden on, it was like 8 to a 36-hour train ride.
Oh, wow.
To come for me to teach them. I think that was my first very eye-opening experience to the influence that I had as a twirler. And I think that's really what was so inspirational for me moving forward, especially to the next NBC World Championship. The reason that I did put myself through so much and so much training and so many hours in the gym, because I knew that coming back, these people like looked forward to what I would bring to the table, because they would be continually inspired by that for the years to come. And I really had no idea, because so many times I would just twirl for myself and just like have fun with it, because that's really what it's about, you know. But because I think when I was younger, I really focused on, like, oh, I twirl for myself. But now I've very much gotten away from that, and I twirl very much for the others in the twirling world. I've really learned the value of that. So that's been definitely, like, my favorite moment. And I had a lot of girls last week in Canada who were, like, shaking when they met me. They were terrified of me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. You're afraid of me. I was, like, partially heartbroken.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I want to be your friend.
I'm a normal person.
Yes, I'm so normal. I can't even tell you. I was like, this guy was, like, eating Twizzlers in my bag on the break. I'm like, please, somebody come talk to me. Really, they were, like, sitting on the other side of the gym, like, shaking, afraid to talk to me. I would go up to them, and I'm like, now I know you speak English. You have no excuse to ignore me. But, oh my gosh, it was just, like, everyone was so excited. They all wanted pictures with me, and it's really, like, it's so eye-opening. Every time I travel and I meet these twirlers, I mean, you really learn both how small the twirling world is, but really how big it is and how big of the community is, where everyone communicates, everyone is inspired by each other, everyone pulls ideas from the different countries, and I think that's why we see the major progress that we do from competition to competition. It's really, I mean, wonderful. I've enjoyed just being a part of the last 2 World Championships in BTA, seeing the countries that you really didn't hear about 3 years prior to being, like, close to the podium, or, like, really being the top of the competition 3 years later. The amount of work that these athletes put in, it's all a testament to the sport itself.
So there's some controversy with taping the routines and the baton twirlers. Like, how do you feel about that?
There is. This was something that I was, like, I think I was just offended by it when I was younger, because, like, we would be at local competitions, and my competitors would be, like, blatantly videotaping my routines, and it's like, well, I paid for these.
Yeah.
I paid for these routines. But I very much learned growing up, I think something that my coaches always told me that I think really helped was that they always said, well, you know, once you put that routine out on the floor in front of other people, it's for anyone.
Yeah.
And that always, like, hurt me, because my parents worked so hard. I worked so hard to get these routines. We would pay our coaches for creative choreography. I would travel the world, travel the country to different choreographers. I would get a dance routine and then build off of it. And so much effort would go into it. And then, like, 2 weeks later, I'd be at a local competition, and they'd have the same routine as me. I'm like, that's suspicious. But, like, once it's on the floor, it's anyone's game. And so that's something that I think has always helped me. And now that I've gotten older, I think it's been more of an incentive, because you don't want to just think that your routine is enough. My mom has always said, don't you ever for a second ever believe that any one of your competition is sitting around. They are working to get better. Yeah. You better be better than your last self at each coming competition. So you have to learn to top yourself and believe in yourself enough that you can stay ahead of the pack, working as hard as you can. And really, it's not so much worrying about anyone else, but worrying about yourself. And, like, that was such a hard lesson, because I would be competing, and I could see someone behind the judge watch like this. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh my God.
Why are you doing this? This is my routine. I'm like, do I throw the routine? Like, what do I do? I don't know. Just because it's, like, that's crazy, because we're such a small community. But in a lot of ways, now that I've grown up, I've learned a couple different things, both that you have to continually work to get better, because I want to continually be someone worth videoing. Yeah. I want someone to go home and be like, wow, I really want to work that. And I really do think about the young ones, the young twirlers who are so inspired by what I do, that I never for a second don't want them to video me, because like I want them to go home and watch these videos and be inspired with them, because that's what I did when I was younger. I would go home and I would watch these YouTube videos of all these twirlers, and that's what really, really pushed me when I was younger, to think bigger and think beyond what I'd just seen at my local competitions at that point. So, like, now I really do encourage it, and I think that it's a big part of the sport growing itself. I really, I had to get away from being selfish with my material, because I knew that, like I said, once it's on the floor, it's anyone's game, but I really want the sport itself to grow. So if by sharing what I do and sharing any particular, I guess, segments of my routine inspires someone to do something else and inspires them to even make it bigger, that's just for the benefit of the sport itself. Yeah. And so I really had to get away from, like, my selfish want for gain to really seeing the big gain of twirling. So, like, although I will say it is very frustrating, and as an athlete who works hard for her material, it is frustrating, but I really acknowledge the progress of the sport itself, and I really want that.
So what's next for you in life, in twirling, after college, while you're still in college? I know you said you're not sure about next year yet, but...
Right. There's definitely, this has been a big question mark lately. Mm-hmm. It is never in my wildest dreams did I ever imagine that I would accomplish every single twirling goal I'd set for myself all in 1 year. Mm-hmm. I could never dreamed it. Right now I'm at a point where it's like, do I make more goals? I guess going back to 2016, I came out of the 2016 World Championships in Sweden, and I asked myself, I got, I think, 6th that year. Mm-hmm. I came away and I said, if I'm going to continue to pursue a gold medal at the World Championships, that was what I had always dreamed about. If I'm going to continue to pursue this, I want to look at what I'll have in the end. Mm-hmm. And so I asked myself, I'm going to put my body through this. I'm going to put myself through this emotionally to get this gold medal. And at the end of the day, what am I going to have? And I was like, well, I'm going to have a gold medal. But, and from that point on was when I decided that I wanted to do something more with the sport. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make the gold medal worth something if I was going to put myself through it. So at that point, that was when I decided to start pageants. And I decided to use my twirling as a way to get to community service. Mm-hmm. So I started doing pageants, started finding community service opportunities, raising money for charities, developing my platform, and now I'm working with a local special needs and disabilities group called No Limitations.
Awesome.
They work with kids and they put them in athletic programs, and so last year I was able to get batons funded for them. They're like the lightweight batons, the batons that I first started with. The very first baton I ever had was by this company, and I wrote them and I told them my story and basically how I got to this point and how I really love to have batons for these kids. And so they sent me, I think, 35 batons to share with kids. And so I have a very small class of kids who it's very recreational. None of it is very serious. It's just for fun, just to share the sport. And so I've just kind of adapted into that. And another big goal that I have this year is to get an all-inclusive playground developed here in Waco. There's a bunch up in Dallas and Fort Worth. There's some in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. I think there's one in Austin.
Yeah, there's one here.
Yes, there really isn't anything in Central Texas at this point. Yeah. And there's such a large community here. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to be able to have a park and just a development like that put into construction and put to work. So that's kind of what I'm working on next in the way of my journey to Miss Texas. I'm Miss Dallas this year, so
I'm
spending a lot of time in Dallas, raising money, doing events, things like that. Continue to share twirling, and now I'm working on transitioning into coaching a little bit more, just kind of stepping into that world. I've always loved coaching, but now that I am kind of in the phase where I'm like, well, I love twirling. I want to be involved forever as long as I live, no matter where I can be involved. So until I develop new twirling goals, if I develop new twirling goals, I really don't see a point to go back and continue to get my name put on a plaque or not put on a plaque for years to come. I feel like once I've won it once, that's my goal. That was just what I wanted. I don't really feel the need to go back and win it a bunch. And I'm really excited anyway to kind of transition into coaching. It's a new side of twirling that I continue to contribute creatively. Because I do feel like I have so much more to give. I'm really reaching a point where I am like loving the creativity. And I think taking the stress of competing off has really opened my mind to a lot of things. So I've loved coaching. I've learned a lot just in the last few clinics that I've taught. But that's kind of what I've got going next. Like I said, I would love to continue to perform as much as I can, whether it's with Baylor or just with any performance opportunity that I get. I love to share the sport with people, whether it's Miss Texas or Baylor or whatever, anything. But that's kind of what I've got laid out so far. I'm definitely still in the process of figuring it all out.
Right. Thank you so much. It has been so wonderful talking with you.
I've loved it. I've loved chatting with you.
You too.
Wonderful. Have a great night.
You too. Bye. Thank you again for listening to the Baton Twirling Project podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to be the first notified of future episodes so you can stay up to date with Baton Twirling news. Make sure to leave us a positive review on iTunes to help us reach more and more people about baton twirling. If you'd like more information about baton twirling in your local area, email us at batontwirlingpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you so much for listening and being here. It means so much to baton twirlers everywhere. We'll catch you next time.